Did you feel it too, in that fleeting second when their eyes met, as though the noise of the world faded, and only the two of them existed in that moment? There was something about that night. Not the kind of something you can see right away, but the kind that lingers, that rests just beneath the surface of gestures and words, waiting for someone to notice. Taehyung had gone live, casually perhaps, like he always does, sitting in the quiet hum of his room, with a soft glow of lamplight washing over him like a dream you don't want to wake up from. His voice was calm, slow, deliberate. But behind his words, there was a softness in his gaze that felt heavier than usual, like he was carrying something inside. The live started with laughter, light-hearted comments from fans streaming by, emojis flashing like stardust in the digital night. Taehyung read them, smiled at them, answered a few in his usual playful tone. But then, like a quiet shift in the wind, something changed. His fingers paused over the screen. His eyes, for a brief moment, did not move. And then he read a comment aloud. It was simple, almost too simple. "He's not here today?" And that was when the silence fell. Taehyung looked down. Not with confusion, not with surprise, but with that weighty kind of knowing, like the words had stirred something deeper. He didn't name anyone. He didn't need to. The room grew still, his breath steady but slow, and when he looked up again, there was a glimmer in his eyes that wasn't from the light. And that's when he said it, softly, as though he was speaking only to himself, or to someone who might be listening on the other side of the screen. "I waited for you, for words," whispered, like a secret the heart had been holding onto too long. And for those watching, those who have followed Jungkook and Taehyung's journey through years of shared stages, quiet glances, and small unsaid things, those words felt like the opening of a door long closed. Was it meant for Jungkook? Many fans believe it was. They point to the way Taehyung's expression changed after reading the comment. The way his voice dipped into a whisper not meant for a crowd. The way he glanced sideways, as if remembering something or someone. This wasn't the first time Taehyung and Jungkook had shared moments that defied easy explanation. There was that concert in Busan, where amidst flashing lights and deafening cheers, Jungkook walked past the others, but paused just a second longer when he reached Taehyung. No words were exchanged, just a look, a touch on the shoulder, a barely there smile. It lasted less than a breath, but for those who were watching, it was everything. And then the 2021 Festa dinner. A table surrounded by laughter, confessions, nostalgia. When Jungkook shared his thoughts, his fears, his reflections, Taehyung didn't speak much. He just watched him, eyes never leaving, not even for a second. There was a tension in that gaze, not heavy with worry, but deep with understanding. Like he already knew everything Jungkook was trying to say, even before he said it. Time and again, their bond reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in the quiet. In the way Taehyung calls out Jungkook with a softness that lingers long after the word ends. In the way Jungkook instinctively turns whenever Taehyung enters a room, his body leaning forward just slightly, unconsciously, as though pulled by something invisible. In the way they sometimes fall into sync without trying, mirror each other's posture, finish each other's jokes, or share a laugh that seems to come from a memory only they remember. There was that behind-the-scenes clip after one of their global concerts. Taehyung was sitting alone, tired, his eyes distant. Jungkook walked in, towel slung around his neck, fresh from the stage. He didn't say anything, just walked over and sat beside him. No performance. No need to entertain. Just presence. A quiet companionship. They didn't speak much, but then again, they didn't need to. Taehyung leaned back, and their shoulders touched. That was all. Back to the live stream. The moment Taehyung whispered, "I waited for you," fans flooded social media. Not in chaos, but in quiet disbelief. "Did you hear that?" many asked. Was he talking about Jungkook? Some posted clips of past lives, old interactions, subtle echoes that now seemed louder in retrospect. Others speculated about a conversation we weren't privy to. A meeting that didn't happen. A moment they had planned, maybe that fell through. But speculation was not the point. What mattered was how raw Taehyung seemed in that moment. Vulnerable, open, poetic. and how, when he looked at the screen after saying those words, he didn't smile. He just blinked slowly, letting the silence stretch, almost like he was hoping someone would answer. Later that week, Jungkook went live. It wasn't addressed, at least not directly, but fans noticed his mood. Calm, a little subdued. He sang softly, "No shit list," just songs that came to mind. And one of them, quiet, stripped down, almost like a lullaby, was a song Taehyung once said reminded him of someone he missed. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe not. There's something poetic in how they orbit each other. Not always together, but never too far apart. Not always speaking, but always listening. In moments when the world is loud, they find silence with each other. In the chaos of fame, they find an anchor. In a smile, a gesture, a passing glance. Some say their bond is just friendship. A deep, beautiful friendship that has withstood time and distance. Others sense something more. Not romantic, necessarily, but soul deep. The kind of connection that doesn't fit neatly into labels. And maybe that's the beauty of it. That it resists definition. That it exists quietly, steadily, regardless of what anyone believes. There was a fan meeting once, where a fan asked Jungkook what he does when he feels overwhelmed. He smiled, then looked down and simply said, "I talk to the ones who understand me." And later, in the same event, Taehyung said something eerily similar. Sometimes, just sitting next to someone in silence is enough. So when Taehyung looked at the screen that night, with the world watching, and said, "I waited for you," it wasn't just a sentence. It was a window, a glimpse into something tender and fragile and quietly aching. A truth that may never be fully spoken, but always felt. Perhaps they'll never explain it. Perhaps they don't need to. Because some connections don't need explanation, they just are. And when the cameras turn away, when the stage lights dim, when the voices fade into silence, what remains is the feeling. That flicker of something honest, unspoken, eternal. We don't know what they truly feel. We are not meant to. But maybe, just maybe, between every look, every word held back, every song sung without a name attached, lies a story only they understand. And yet, as time passes, these quiet echoes seem to grow louder, soft footprints of something unspoken left behind in the dust of each shared memory. In the days following Taehyung's live, fans didn't just move on. They lingered. They replayed the moment. Not once, not twice, but again and again, like a melody stuck in the heart. The comment sections across platforms became a collective diary of thoughts. Why did it sound like a goodbye? Is he missing someone? I feel like he was speaking straight to Jungkook. There was something universally human about it. How one sentence, spoken in the quiet of a room, could ripple out into millions of hearts around the world. How vulnerability, when laid bare, could create an invisible thread connecting people who've never met, but all feel the same ache. That longing, that sense of almost. And somewhere in that ache is Jungkook. You see, Jungkook has always been the quieter of the two when it comes to emotional expression. He moves through the world like a storm wrapped in calm. He sings, he dances, he laughs. But when it comes to deep emotion, he speaks more through action than words. Which is why fans hold on so tightly to the rare glimpses, like the moment during a fan sign, when someone asked him who he misses most when they're apart. He paused, smiled, then whispered, "You know who." And maybe we do. There's a certain symmetry to the way Jungkook and Taehyung exist within BTS, like 2 points on opposite ends of a circle, always mirroring, always complementing. Taehyung, with his poetic soul, always teetering between mischief and melancholy. Jungkook, with his gentle fire, who sees everything and says little. Together, they form a balance, a silent language that even the other members sometimes acknowledge. During one Run BTS episode, there was a scene barely a few seconds long. Taehyung had tripped during a game, laughing as he fell. The others continued the chaos, but Jungkook, he rushed over, quietly, instinctively. He didn't make a joke, didn't call attention to it. Just helped him up with a hand on the shoulder and a whispered word no mic picked up. It was small, easy to miss, but those who saw it knew it was enough. This is how their bond speaks. In whispers, in silences, in a hand offered before one is asked for. In the way Taehyung once waited at the airport a little longer, even after his schedule was over, just to greet Jungkook when he arrived from overseas. No cameras were meant to catch it, but one did. And the footage spread like fire. Taehyung in the corner, face half hidden, but eyes watching the crowd, until they found the one they were waiting for. Even years ago, when they were just boys, these patterns were forming. Fan cams from their earliest tours show moments where, on crowded stages filled with noise and light, they still managed to find each other. A glance mid-song, a playful nudge, a secret shared through laughter. And as they grew, not just as idols but as men, their moments shifted, matured, became quieter, more precious. Taehyung once wrote in a post, "The people who stay, even when I'm quiet, they are my comfort." And fans believe, though he didn't name anyone, the way he looked in the photos that accompanied the caption, relaxed, thoughtful, wearing a hoodie Jungkook had once worn, spoke volumes. And then the Tokyo trip, a memory armies hold dear. The two of them, alone, in a city where no one knew their names. Just Taehyung and Jungkook, wandering alleys, eating ramen, laughing in quiet cafes. It was one of the rare times they shared something so intimate publicly, not in grand declarations, but in grainy vlog footage, in candid smiles, in songs hummed softly in the background. Fans often say that vlog felt like watching a love letter written in real time. Not necessarily romantic, but sacred, timeless. After the live, when Taehyung said those 4 simple words, "I waited for you," some fans remembered Tokyo. How waiting had always been part of their story. Waiting backstage. Waiting during rehearsals. Waiting when one was sick and the other couldn't sleep. And now, perhaps, waiting in life, too, for time to align again. And Jungkook, for all his silence, answers in his own way. A week later, during his solo live, he began singing without a plan. The room was dim, his hair slightly messy, his voice raw, tender, unguarded. Then, out of nowhere, he started humming Scenery, a song Taehyung had written years ago, filled with longing, about capturing fleeting moments before they slip away. He didn't say the name, didn't explain, just sang. Fans lost their breath. It was not a performance. It was remembrance. Maybe even a response. Moments like these are why armies feel so deeply about their bond. Not because of rumors, not because of fantasy, but because they've seen something real, delicate, quietly blooming, unfold across years of glances, of missed chances, of promises held between the lines. Some say it's brotherhood. Others call it fate. But whatever it is, it refuses to be labeled. And maybe that's the truest kind of connection. Because there are kinds of love that don't need to be declared. Love that lives in the waiting, in the watching, in a whisper during a live stream, or in a song sung to the dark. As fans, we watch from afar. We don't know everything. We're not meant to. But in moments like this, when Taehyung, caught off guard by a comment, lets his heart speak without armor, we're reminded why we care. Why this story matters. It's not about confirmation. It's not about theories. It's about witnessing something human, something soft, something that exists in the space between words. And in the end, maybe that's enough. We may never know what they truly feel. The world may never get a definitive answer. But sometimes, the questions are more beautiful than the answers could ever be. Sometimes, the mystery is the gift. So the next time you see them on stage, or catch a flicker of a glance, a lingering smile, a moment that feels like déjà vu, pause. Listen.
Feel.
Because somewhere in that silence, a story is still being written, but sometimes, even silence echoes. In the weeks that followed, clips from that live continued to circulate, edited, slowed down, overlaid with soft music, paired with old memories. Fans began stitching together timelines, moments where Taehyung looked like he was searching, and moments where Jungkook seemed like he was waiting to be found. Each fan brought their own thread to the tapestry, some with gentle nostalgia, others with aching hope. And somehow, together, they began to see a story unfold in the margins. Because this wasn't just about a single phrase. It wasn't just about, "I waited for you." It was about 1,000 tiny moments that suddenly felt illuminated in its light. Like that fan meeting in 2019 when Taehyung asked about his happiest memory, paused for longer than anyone expected. He smiled to himself. Then he simply said, "A night walk after a concert. Just two of us. Quiet." He didn't name who. But fans noticed Jungkook's head turn at that moment, his eyes flickering with recognition, like someone reliving the same memory in perfect sync.